to the God is Good podcast, where we share stories of everyday people who have reignited their faith in Jesus and experienced remarkable life transformations. My name is Carol O'Brien. I'm your host for this podcast, and it would mean the world to me if you would share our podcast with others who might really benefit from hearing our episodes. God is the rock of my heart, my portion forever. But those who are far from you perish. You destroy those unfaithful to you. As for me, to be near God is my good, to make the Lord God my refuge. Psalm 73, verses 26 through 28. Welcome, friends, to a very special bonus episode of the God is Good podcast. As I prepare to serve on another evangelization retreat, I couldn't bear the thought of leaving you without an episode during this time. Your incredible response to our first bonus episode inspired me deeply, and so, with gratitude in my heart, I knew now was the perfect moment to do another one. Today, I invite you to join me in what I hope will be uplifting highlights from episodes 6 through 8. These are stories of courage, vulnerability, and undeniable transformation that remind us how, even in our struggles, God's love is constant and His grace is abundant. Whether you're newly joining us or have listened from the beginning, I hope these highlights will ignite your spirit and rekindle your hope. Let's begin with highlights from episode 6, LeighAnn's story, Striving for Jesus. LeighAnn's journey speaks to so many of us who have tried to fill an inner emptiness with achievements and the approval of others. Despite her many successes in academics, sports, and her career, LeighAnn discovered that without God, her foundation felt unsteady. It was in the quiet aftermath of an unexpected blessing, and later through the heartbreak of losing a loved one, that she realized her worth didn't depend on striving or accomplishment. In a moment of stillness, LeighAnn recognized that she was already cherished, already enough in God's eyes. Her story is a testament to the freedom and peace that comes from embracing divine love. Now, let's listen to a few clips from LeighAnn's incredible journey.
I was a believer. I was more or less what I call a stick figure, one-dimensional believer, because I knew there was a God, but my faith didn't go past that. I didn't know that there was anything more than that. I had no idea of the power and access that I had to the spiritual blessings of relationship with Jesus. We attended church from time to time with my grandma, but I never really felt a solid foundation or that I belonged there.
I've never heard that phrase before, a stick figure one-dimensional believer. It's so fitting, though, isn't it? When there's no relationship, it's all one-sided, one-dimensional. You said you thought you were a burden. In your young mind and heart, how did that affect the way you felt about yourself?
I think you touch on a really good point, because all of my striving and all of my accomplishments were really rooted in proving myself and proving my worth. If I can just show them I can do that, then I'll earn the love that I was so desperately seeking. Again, I didn't realize that there was relationship in Jesus and God. I just thought He existed and we just needed to believe in Him. But what I was searching for was that value and worth that He had already placed in me, which all I had to do was go to Him to discover it. But I wasn't walking with the Lord. It was the winter of 2021. My mom was hospitalized with COVID-19, and my marriage was officially in crisis. Everything was falling apart. Everything I worked so hard to prevent by being a good wife and a good mother and a good nurse and all of the things, like, it didn't add up. I couldn't believe it. This is everything I was running from my whole life. During that time, my husband was sleeping on the couch at his mother's apartment, and my mom was dying in the hospital while I was unable to visit her. And I had never felt so alone and honestly so destroyed. I lost nearly 20 pounds during that 3 weeks of time. I had so much pain and grief and disbelief and shock and trauma. My mom died in January of 2022. I had only been able to see her twice while she was in the hospital because she had COVID. That is when everything stopped. I was hardened to everything. My spouse wanted reconciliation. and tried to support me when my mom died tragically. But I was like hardened to him. I was just in survival mode. For anyone who has experienced betrayal or brokenness in your marriage, nothing can compare to that pain. And on top of grieving the loss of someone so close to you, that's when I couldn't do it anymore. I think I needed to have everything stripped away where I couldn't without God.
So you had this painful but beautiful moment when you realized that God had been working your whole life for your good, even though you couldn't see it. So is this where a new path began for you? And if so, how did it happen?
So I told my husband, and I didn't think he would do it, to call Allie, my faithful sister, who had always been planting seeds through the years. And he did. He got off the phone with me and called my sister. She prompted him to seek God, and he did that. He not only sought God, he powerfully leaned in, and he hasn't been the same since. He used to be critical of religion and never had any interest in church. Now, he was bringing me to church and reading me daily devotionals. He would read to me the Bible. Over time, I was able to slowly heal and open up. I could see how the Lord transformed my husband right before my eyes. The Lord works miracles. And I was just softening to that reality, softening to that there's more to God than just the stick figure belief that I had. So I jumped in with my husband. It's kind of bittersweet in that it took us so much time to get there, but the Lord doesn't waste anything. And it's so beautiful when the two of you can do it together. We are so blessed beyond measure that we both are deeply in love with the Lord and who He is and His character, and our lives are led by Him.
So it sounds like you've transformed from a stick figure believer into a full-fledged, God is the center of your life kind of figure. It's very rich and it's very beautiful. Next, let's revisit episode 7, where Abby's story unfolds, a portrait of hope rising from hardship. Abby walked through seasons of loneliness and self-doubt, believing she was unworthy of love. Yet, at her lowest, God's gentle presence became unmistakable in the kindness of those He brought into her life. Through these grace-filled encounters, Abby learned that God doesn't abandon us in our pain. Rather, He surrounds us with communities of compassion that reflect our inherent God-given worthiness. Abby's transformation is a powerful reminder that hope can flourish, even in the darkest of times. Let's hear a glimpse of Abby's story of grace and renewal.
I was very lukewarm in my faith life in that I would pray occasionally. I prayed when I was in trouble or when I needed something, but I wasn't praying just consistently. Growing up, a lot of my life was bad. It was full of very dangerous, risky, and bad decisions. A lot of it was just through circumstance and just a product of my environment. Being molested as an example, it was by somebody in my family. I didn't at the time say anything about it. I actually never said anything about it to my mom. She's now passed away, but I was at a place in my life where I just thought it would be my fault. I thought that I wouldn't be believed, or I thought that it would be justified in some way. Looking back, I would say I probably felt like I wasn't loved and nurtured. So bringing this extra problem to my mom's plate, on top of all the other problems I had seen her and witnessed her experiencing, I just felt like this was something I should just keep to myself.
It sounds like you didn't have anyone you could turn to, which must have been really hard. Let's transition from childhood to young adulthood. Can you tell us about that time of your life?
Growing up in this home where I just witnessed this unhealthy type of relationship, and then also being a victim of molestation, it all put together this thought in my head of what I thought love was. And so I think for me, I was just trying to cling on to anything that felt like love. I found myself in a high school relationship with this boy, and I just thought it was the best thing ever. I thought it was the best thing in the world. I had somebody that would listen to me and that would talk to me and that would hear all my problems, and everything just seemed great while ignoring all the other red flags. right? If maybe I had seen something different, I would have realized. Being in this relationship that was unhealthy, although maybe I didn't realize that at the time, resulted in me having a pregnancy. That pregnancy resulted in an abortion. And after that, not only did I stay in the relationship, but it also produced 2 other children out of wedlock.
Were you still afraid to talk to your family about what was happening in your life at this point?
Oh, yeah, this relationship that I was in was definitely not one that my parents approved of at all. So I kept doing it. That was probably out of spite. That was out of rebellion. And even after I had terminated a pregnancy, I still stayed in that relationship. I still chose to be in that unhealthy situation. And part of it was probably pride, also in having to have to go to my mom and admit failure, admit that I was in this relationship that I probably never should have been in. And so I didn't say anything. I just kept my mouth shut and I just endured it all. I remember I was 4 months pregnant with my second child with this person. And I didn't want to say anything. I didn't want to say anything to anybody. I was in denial. I didn't want to do this. We were supposed to be getting married because I thought that was going to be the fix, right? Like, oh, get married and that's going to change everything. And so here I was now. I found myself in my second pregnancy. I was supposed to be getting married. My mom had been on me. She was saying, you need to plan the wedding and do all these things. And why haven't you done it yet? And I couldn't. I just didn't feel the motivation. So I went to my priest and I said, I know this isn't what I'm supposed to be doing. I can't marry this person. And this is why. And thankfully, he said, well, then don't marry this person. Marrying this person is not going to be the best thing for you. And so we prayed about it together. Then I went home and I told my mom everything. I faced with the fact that I might be a single mom of 2 very small boys.
So, how did your life look different at this point? What changes, even gradual ones, were happening?
I would still say I wasn't at the point where I felt like I had had my quote unquote conversion. I was just going to church because I had one boy pregnant with another. And it was important for me for them to grow up in our faith. I met this wonderful woman and she invited me into the Ladies Altar Society. And it was this wonderful ministry where I just met these amazing ladies and they were just so filled with God's grace and his love. He really was working through these women. I just remember being around them thinking they have something that I wanted really bad. And I couldn't tell what it was. They all took me under their wing and they were there for me. That was the very first steps I started taking into having a deeper faith life. I started going to mass regularly and it made it a little bit more easy to face the fact that all of the decisions that I had made were probably not the best decisions, that this isn't what God's plan was for me. So fast forward, I have the second baby. He's days old. And that individual comes home and he starts packing up all of his stuff. I knew I wanted this, but now it's actually happening and I'm freaking out. I thought it was going to be on my terms. It's not. He's doing it. He's getting all of his stuff. I'm just like, don't leave. What are we going to do without you? We have a small baby. You can't leave. Obviously, that doesn't work out and he leaves. And I remember being on the floor sobbing. I started praying and I just prayed for God to be there with me. I got on the phone after that and I called some of those people from the Ladies Altar Society and I told them what had happened. They said, we'll come to the church tomorrow at 10 and we'll talk. So I show up at the church and one of the members is there and she has these gift cards. And then another person shows up and they have diapers and somebody else has wipes and all these necessities. And they were just there. And they prayed with me and they prayed for me. It was this overwhelming flood of love. It's kind of funny because my life was so messy and God was just giving himself to me through these ladies, showing me all of these parts of God through kindness and mercy. There was no judgment. It was just God's love working through these wonderful women. And I think if I had to pin it on anything, that was my moment. That was my conversion where I knew that God was there. God had always been there. He was meeting me where I was at, and that was enough for him. I wasn't going to church all the time. I wasn't praying all the time. I wasn't partaking in sacraments. I wasn't going to adoration, but I was enough for God. I felt in that moment that God had left the 99 to come back for the one. I felt like I was that one sheep, and God came back for me. And he had been there the whole time. He had never left. So that gave me the courage to say, okay, this is my life now. I'm officially a single mom of two very small boys. And so it was hard. But these women made it less hard. I think I finally realized it was community that I had needed and that I had been longing for. God sent me these people to show me that he's there and he's working through the hearts of others, right? Through their hands and through their feet.
Finally, we arrive at episode 8, featuring Belinda's moving testimony in Jesus' arms. Belinda's experience will resonate with anyone who has ever tried to anchor their identity in worldly achievements, only to find their spirit longing for something deeper. When her career accolades began to ring hollow and spiritual dryness crept in, it was the heartfelt plea of her child that awakened Belinda to what truly mattered. Courageously, she chose to step away from the success that no longer satisfied her to embark on a journey of rediscovery. Turning to God for guidance and comfort, Belinda found her faith renewed, her soul nourished by the wisdom of the saints and the richness of spiritual tradition. Her story is proof that surrendering to God's call can lead to purpose and peace beyond imagining. Let's now listen to a moving segment from Belinda's journey.
About 18, I just felt a lot of grace up until that point, and then I felt a tremendous amount of dryness. So when I started having that dry spell, I just didn't feel him at all. I went from talking to God every day and hearing him back to not hearing him at all. I remember I was in my dorm room when I was trying to pray and I was hearing nothing back at all. It was just so dry. After I graduated from college with my master's degree in social work, I was working at a prison. I just drifted. I was moving off into deep waters away from what I really should have been in. Hurtful for me because I know that the scriptures say to those who more is given, more is expected. And I feel like that was a time when I just wasn't living up to my true identity as a child of God. I just feel like, wow, that was wasted time in terms of what I could have been doing. I never stopped going to church. I still went on Sundays because that had just been so ingrained to me. But I just had all these other notions because I didn't understand the scriptural and doctrinal and disciplinary underpinnings.
Did your professional success alleviate some of the stress in your life, or did it add to it?
I've been working as a program director in a long-term facility. I've been working with teenagers, teens who have what we call coexisting disorders, that's chemical dependency and mental illness. These teens were in a long-term residential facility where I was on a beeper 24 hours a day. I just couldn't get away from it. And I couldn't get up in the morning. I was so tired. And I checked on my depression symptoms. I was eating okay. I was sleeping okay, but I couldn't get out of bed every morning. It took me half an hour praying to the angels to just get me up. And I literally worked myself through mono. That's how disordered my life was at that time. My husband had his degree then, and I got to quit that job. I got to start my own business. So I went to work, but for myself. I set up trainings for other professionals to come and learn about addictions because I was establishing myself in my profession as like a small expert in addictions. And I would put on trainings to licensed clinicians. I would prepare people going for their chemical dependency certifications. I was making most of the money. I was running the training institute, and my husband, who was alive then, was helping me with the insurance stuff. He had lost his job, so He was working with me, and I thought was our business. He didn't see it the same way, but at least he was helping me. I had just had my third baby in December and started training again in January.
So you had a lot depending on the success of your business, your family stability, and your identity as a professional. And it sounds like your faith journey had continued to stall, become lukewarm. What happened to change all of that?
My son, my oldest, had been asking for 2 years for me to homeschool him, and I just didn't see that at all. I couldn't understand how I could get from here to there because I was earning most of the money. I just didn't feel like it was a stable situation for me to just leave that. And also, like I said, I had been highly trained. So it was a huge decision. And when the only Catholic school turned my son down, he had been a straight A student in a magnet program. They turned him down. I just thought, no, I'm not putting him in a school that has metal detectors. I don't feel like that's good for his physical safety. I felt like God was saying, it's time now. You need to homeschool your child. So I relied on the grace of God. I gave up the training institute and came home and I homeschooled my children.
It must have been a really incredibly hard decision. Once you made it, how did it impact your life and your family's lives?
That year, we just started having a totally different life. My oldest son, who was in 8th grade, started studying chess. My middle son ended up going through 2 grades in 1 year because he wanted to catch up to where he should have been. It all worked out and it went fast and furious. And because I came home to homeschool, I started learning my faith. I started having that deeper conversion of really giving everything to God. And so it was like more of a gradual process, but that brought me deeper into being committed that every single day I was going to do the rosary and every single day I was going to do the liturgy of the hours. And I had my children praying the liturgy of the hours with me. That was kind of how it went from moving out of the worldliness into a home life that was based around prayer, around learning our faith together, me and the children, and then reading these saint books, which I had never read. I want to cry when you think about it, because the lived experience of being faithful to teaching your children how to pray. Because that's what I was doing. You go to Mass, you come out, you're on fire for God, and you want to live that and show other people who He is. And so you go back to the scriptures and you pray and you stay close to Him. And God rewarded me by showing me that by just trying to teach my children how to pray, I was teaching them how to pray with the scriptures.
Oh, I love that. When you trusted God and made that difficult decision, He brought you even more blessings than you expected for your life. But I imagine just because it was the right decision, it still must have been hard on you. Being an accomplished professional was an important part of how you saw yourself. What changes happened to you personally through this time?
People would say to me, oh, I could never homeschool my children because I don't have any patience. I'm like, well, I'm right there with you. I mean, that's the testimony to God right there, is that I could homeschool my children. It was very, very difficult. So I leaned on God a lot. I prayed all the time. And what I discovered was another vocation. He put upon my heart that yearning to pray for other people in an intercessory prayer. All those years of suffering were connected to praying an intercessory prayer. I had this, I don't want to call it a vision, but it was like an image one time where I could see myself dying and all these people coming to get me. And I knew that they were all the people that I had prayed for.
Well, that's all the time that we have for today. I hope you enjoyed LeighAnn's story, Abby's story, and Belinda's story. You can find the full episodes wherever you listen to podcasts. And if these stories spoke to your heart and you want to become part of this movement, we'd love to hear from you. Maybe you have a story to tell, but you're not sure if it's right for the podcast. That's okay. Reach out anyway, and we'll walk through it together. And if sharing your story isn't your thing, you can still make a difference by liking, following, and sharing this very episode. We're so grateful for those who support us financially as well. Your generosity helps us move hearts on their journey toward holiness by sharing stories that glorify God. We can't wait to share more with you in the next episode. Until then, friends, remember, God is good.